This video is going to be a commentary piece, a look at one of my favorite players in the pre-draft process, and that's Renardo Green. I think he's a great example of how interesting, fun, and challenging the pre-draft process can be from an evaluation standpoint, and then trying to project where he's going to go as you conduct a mock draft. There's people with wildly different thoughts about where he will go, where he'll actually be selected. But I haven't heard anyone say that Renardo Green can't play. Everyone seems to be in agreement that he can perform, at least the savvy and down-to-earth people that I communicate with. I have to give a shout-out to Edgar Allen. He did a video about 7 or 10 days ago about Green. Really kind of opened my eyes. Then I went and watched 3 games I had saved up on him. Miami, Clemson, LSU from 2023. Just confirmed everything that EA was saying, that he's a guy who can play. He's a guy that the Ravens should look at drafting. Second, third round. If he's available in the fourth, you take him. I don't think he makes it to 293, let alone past it. He's a fantastic cover corner, in my opinion. There's a number of other corners, however, that also cover well, and that are going to be taken off the board before him. Should they? I don't know. I don't rank players, wide receiver 1, QB or cornerback 1. That shit is tired to me. For me, it starts and stops with this. Can they play? And then where would you advocate for them to be taken or selected based upon your team's draft needs? That's as far as I go, for real. Now, with the Ravens, there's so many other needs to fill at the picks where the Ravens probably should select him. They may have other needs to fill. Based on the film I've watched in 2023, I think he's going to start for some team in the NFL next year in 2023. And I mean a good starter. If we can go by the film, which unfortunately I'm not going to show in this video. I guess I should have said that earlier. My channel's called All 22 Films. Seems kind of hypocritical for me to not show college film. I just don't do it. I lost a channel a couple years ago because of reasons related to copyright and college film, so I'm not going to do that. I don't want anyone else to have to go through that either. So, but there's other people who do college film, and it's not causing problems for them, so check them out. I also do offer it on my Twitter and my Patreon, but you're certainly not obligated to join the Patreon. Look, Green is as good in coverage as anyone I saw go against the LSU guys this year, and that's Thomas and Neighbors. A lot of what I have to say is based on that game and just the athletic ability that he had to match up with both of them at different times. There's significant film that people have shown of that matchup, rightfully so. But the Miami and Clemson games line up. They align with his performance in that. He's very patient, unaffected by the various juke releases, whether they're outside in, inside out moves, whatever, unaffected by it. He's just not bothered. He trusts his speed to be able to make up any ground. 4.49, 40 at the combine, so not super fast like some other guys, but he plays fast, if you ask me, in coverage. He's able to recover. And look, I saw him. I did see him get beat one time in that LSU game. It was first snap of the game. Thomas beats him to the inside. There's no safety help at all. And from a lot of what I saw, Renardo Green got no safety help most of the game in every game, all 3 games that I watched. Thomas's route was basically a clear out, and so therefore he was not targeted. They threw the ball to the running back on a design concept. In my opinion, where Green really shined was defending Neighbors. Is Green physical? Absolutely. Will he get a ton of penalties in the NFL? I think it's presumptuous to say that. I will answer the question this way. I think it depends on which team drafts him. I did say that, and I mean exactly how I mean it on two levels. Depends on what team drafts him. Here's point number 1 about that. If he plays for certain teams that are perceived to be well coached and or are well coached, and generally play penalty-free, there will be less actual flags thrown on him. Read between the lines if you wish. Along with that, however, part and parcel to it, he'll be coached better in those situations, wherever it is. Baltimore, San Francisco, Kansas City, whatever. And so that will be coached out of him. Or he'll be coached how to do it more efficiently without drawing so many flags and still remain physical. So basically his tools will get sharpened where the actual infractions are minimized and therefore called less. Second point about penalties, because there's a lot of people who say that. It's in every draft projection you see on him. He'll get called for more penalties in the NFL. Said the same thing about Sauce Gardner. It depends on the scheme. If you play in Wink Martindale's defense, and I know that he's at Michigan right now, but you'll be left on an island more than in any other secondary, pretty much in the NFL. So my answer to the question, will he get a ton of penalties in the NFL, is related to who drafts him, what scheme they play, because it's not a judgment at all on Green's physical and athletic skills and traits, and then his technique, because I think he's got all the tools to be a high-level corner in the NFL. Can he start in year one for someone? Yes, based on the film I've seen. Depends on where he gets drafted, whether he does start or not, and how much he gets on the field. Is he potentially better than most of the corners that are going to be taken ahead of him? I don't know how to answer that necessarily, other than to say, do I think he's better than 3 or 4 of the cover corners that are going to be taken ahead of him by most projections? Yes, I do. And I might be wrong. You see what you see. Other evaluators see what they see. I see a guy who was all over the wide receivers he had to cover in the games I had the privilege to watch. I would draft him. If I think from a Ravens or a Lions perspective, there are a ton of players that we as fans want our teams to take. But some of them, I'm going to do the Ravens and Lions together here, picks 29 and 30 in the first round. Some, or actually a lot of the guys that we all like, it doesn't make sense to draft them at 29 or 30. You still would like them to be on your team. I'm going to list some guys. Mike St. Riestel, Cooper Beebe, Xavier Legette, Max Melton, Ricky Pearsall. That's a list of guys, whether you're a Ravens or Lions fan, that you would like to be on your team, depending on the specific needs for your team. But the problem is you don't want to take them at 29 or 30. And a lot of them will not be available. They won't still be on the board at 61 or 62. Now, in the case of Green, I don't think that stands from the 29-30 turnaround to 61-62, no matter which team you root for. It does, however, for the Ravens, apply from the 62 to 93 turnaround. Basically, the Ravens' second-round pick, 62, Green will probably be on the board. If they wait to try to take him at 93 and they haven't addressed corner already, he may not be there. Lions are in a different spot. They could go outside linebacker, edge, wide receiver, or offensive line early at 29 and 61. Then they get another pick 12 selections later, 12 slots later at 73 because of the trade with the Vikings. Who knows what organization actually drafts him? My suspicion, based on my limited experience trying to project or predict drafts, it's now 3 years into that process for me, and from the film I watch, is that Green is there definitely at 61 or 62 for either one of those teams to take. Most likely also there at 73. Do I think there's some NFL front office / organization coaching staff who thinks he's really good and can play from day one? Absolutely. To say that he'll definitely be there at 93 for the Ravens, that's tough. The latest mock draft database info that I've seen, I cross-referenced 3 different sites, somewhere in the 92 to 108 to 110 range for projections for him. So 4th round, late 3rd, early 4th. Pretty damn good player if you ask me. If you get him late 3rd, early 4th, you got a lot of comp picks in there as well. I think he should be off the board earlier than 93. Is he a round 2 player, round 1 player? I mean, all that grade stuff I don't get into. I focus on the positions that are of most need for the Ravens and then the Lions, and I attempt to get as familiar as possible with the selection of players at those position groups who might be on the board when they're going to pick. Man, for me, as a Ravens fan, if Green is available at 93 and we haven't addressed corner, you take him. It's a no-brainer. The Lions situation a little bit different. 29, 61, 73, barring no trades. Do you take him at 73 if you haven't addressed corner? I do still think the answer is yes. For me, what I've focused on is corner, wide receiver, offensive line, and then outside linebacker, D-end, edge. I am far less impressed with the outside linebacker group than any of those other positions. The inverse is true of corner and receivers. I just think there's a ton of guys who can play at receiver and corner. Part of that is the training, the coaching for those guys is better at earlier levels. By the time they reach college, they've already been coached at a higher level. The skills have been developed for the situations they'll see. The rule set obviously favors the wide receivers, which, if you ask me, in turn creates increased efficiency for the corners in their training, and they're trying to weed out problem areas because they get called for those penalties more often. So it's coached out of them, hopefully, at a lower level earlier. Green is one of the better corners on film that I've seen. And the game that I would use to kind of illustrate it, again, not going to show any film, Malik Neighbors' stats there on the screen for 2023. He was integral in slowing down Neighbors back in that week 1 win. You can see 6 catches, 67 yards, no touchdowns. Thomas did beat Green on that first snap that I was talking about. But in terms of matching up, it was an impeccable performance that night. Just, it's one that sticks out in my mind. He did a great job of staying close to Neighbors, always being on the correct leverage side. He seems like a very intelligent corner who knows the leverage side, knows the routes that are probably going to show by the receivers. And the Clemson and Miami film just lines up with that, if you ask me. Neighbors was at LSU and was incredible in 2023. Green made him work extremely hard just to get open enough for the ball to be thrown to him. There was 2 passes defensed, 2 great coverage situations down near the goal line, interception on a sideline comeback route. Green is a very good football player. He can tackle. That's actually poorly worded. To say he can tackle is like, oh, it happens sometimes. No, Green seems to relish it and be ready for it. And when it does happen, he's like a missile coming downhill when the ball bounces outside. He spent, in terms of coverage, he spent a lot of time in man, obviously, and was often just being run off by the wide receiver, meaning the wide receiver knows it's man and runs a route that Green has to cover, and therefore his back is turned in the run support situation. He was clearly trusted by Florida State's coaching staff because he spent so much time in man with very little help, very little safety help to his side at times. Can he play zone? Absolutely. Yes. Can he play quarters, split field stuff? Some people call it match coverages. Certainly. There's film of him doing so in those games. And he doesn't give away the coverage pre-snap with his alignment. He's also very efficient, if you ask me, at defending some of the routes that show. A good tackler to the point where when the ball is caught against him, he eliminates yards after the catch by making the tackle. I think he would be an amazing selection for the Ravens at 93, for the Lions at 73, if they have addressed a couple of other positions first, whether that's edge player and wide receiver, whether that's offensive line and edge player. If they've addressed 2 of those positions, which it stands to reason they would with 29 and 61, then I think he's a great pick at 73 as well. They could end up trading back, which just opens them up even more. If they had 4 picks up through 73, look out. Renardo Green is coming to Detroit, if you ask me. Brad Holmes will have those options, and Green to me looks like a guy that would fit that organization well. Having said that, neither Baltimore nor Detroit has to start him immediately. In Baltimore, you got Brandon Stevens and Marlon Humphrey. And with the Lions, you've got Davis and Robertson. All 4 of those guys were brought in as starters. Having said that, Green could start. He could outplay one or many of those guys. The projections, to me, of him later than 100 are a little high, a little late, in my opinion. If he's taken at 85, if he's taken at 90, that wouldn't surprise me. I think an NFL corner with a long career is going to get drafted by somebody, whether it's 65, 75, 85, or 95, or 105, because he's tough, very smart, extremely talented, been well coached already. I think he's more versatile than just a man corner. People do that too often. Oh, he played a lot of man in college. That's all he's going to do in the pros. That's not true. That's not the way it works. You'll be coached by different people. You'll be put in different situations. He's played other spots in his career besides outside corner. He's played some in the slot. I would love to see him in Baltimore or Detroit. I'm just not sure he'll be there at 93 for the Ravens to take. It seems to me like multiple teams have observed what we're describing on film here and would rather grab him a little early than miss out on a potential starter waiting on him near the end of round 3. Appreciate you guys' time. Forgive me for not showing any film in this. I would like some feedback on some of these videos. I try to have graphics that rotate with some stats so that it's not just the same pick, just sitting there and staring you in the face for the full 15 minutes that I talk about it. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you think other Ravens or Lions fans would enjoy this video, this breakdown, discussion of Renardo Green's skills and trying to project him in the draft, then please consider sharing a link out on social media to help this content get more reach.